Welcome to the Dr. Dean Show. Today we've got a fascinating topic that we're going to be talking about, and it's coming from a book called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, and we'll be looking into some of the things that he said today.
Dr. Dean Beckloff has been working as a counselor with students, families, kids, and teens for over 40 years. As the founder of the Beckloff Behavioral Health Center, Dr. Dean focuses on children and families that need a little extra help via counseling. Each week with Dr. Elizabeth Zak, we discuss all things family related to help people create the positive family they want to build. Welcome to the Dr. Dean Show.
Okay, like I said, we're going to be talking today about Jonathan Haidt's book called The Anxious Generation, and we've got two special guests. Our normal guest, Dr. Zak, who is joining us, who is a licensed psychologist working at our clinic, as well as Dr. Martin, who is another licensed psychologist who is working at our clinic, and both of them are involved with working with kids and teens and doing testing, and they've done a lot of work with families, a ton of families. So we're glad to have both of you here to pick your brains and to understand this topic. And let me just start by saying, I was going by an elementary school the other day, and there was that line of cars, just big line, people waiting, parents waiting. And I thought to myself, my parents would never have done this. They would never have done it. When we moved to Nashville, Tennessee, I was in junior high. There was a bus. I jumped on the bus. My younger brother and sister were in elementary school, and they simply were expected to walk to school. It was a mile. It was a mile. But that's what you do. That's what you do. Things have changed now. Tons of parents are taking their kids to school. And I just was reflecting on that. And that's really some of what we're going to be talking about today. So let me ask you, Dr. Zak. Recently, you asked our office people, our therapists, to look at this book and read it. And we all came together and talked about it. Why was that important to you?
I think this is probably one of the most impactful reads that I've read in the past year plus. And just really, it hit hard because not only do I have some teens in this, that this book kind of speaks to, but also, within like the last 10 years in practice, there has been one presenting issue that just seems exponentially on the rise. I get more and more referrals for kids with anxiety, teens,
Yep.
adults. And so, I thought, okay, this has become a bestseller. Let's take a look at it. And after I read it, I thought, oh my goodness, boy, is this something that we need to be talking about.
Yes.
It really speaks to the changes that you're talking about and how as a society so many things, right, have changed. And this author really suggests that why we are seeing such an increase in mental health referrals relates to the advent of this guy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
The iPhone.
The iPhone.
And not just phones, but the smartphone. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I really felt like we all need as therapists to be aware and so that we can educate our families. But this is such an important topic,
Yeah.
and we wanted to be able
Well,
to talk
society changed too, according to him, that there became a rise in what I think his term is safetyism, something like that, all about safety. Let's keep our kids safe. And we're hearing these stories about kids getting picked up. Now, in my day and time, we were everywhere without my parents, everywhere. Climbing trees all over the neighborhood, had to be back by sundown, maybe.
Mhm.
My parents were very happy when we left the house. But I know that for me, I mean, in terms of this book, I did it all wrong. I did not. I was very safety conscious. I had two girls, and I was very much about it. I think I did finally in fifth and sixth grades let them walk the 2 blocks to the elementary school, and or I would let them do their bikes. But I mean, I walked them to school.
Yeah.
I was with them. I wanted to make sure they were there and okay. And we have this safetyism that's going on culturally that doesn't allow for kids to get out there and explore. And was there another term that he calls it? So our own anxiety is getting
Project onto
transferred
kids. Yeah.
to our kids.
And they don't learn to be resilient. They don't learn to resolve conflicts independently. They don't learn to be confident. You know,
Yes.
I think he talks about in the 80s and 90s, there was, this push, the stranger danger, right? And so we tended
Yes.
to overprotect on the playground. And, I remember in my childhood, being home by dark 30. And if you got in a fight with your buddy, you figured it out. If you couldn't tie your shoes, you learned to tie them. If you skinned your knee, you brushed it off. And that really promotes kind of that growth and that independence and that resilience.
My parents expected my 2 elementary aged siblings to walk to school, cross the roads correctly, look both ways.
Absolutely.
That's just what was expected.
Yeah.
And then who would be in trouble if they didn't? They would. So, yeah.
There's a lot of learning that happened. And then when we shifted away from that, I think that's what he's speaking about
Yeah.
is that we need to go back to allowing kids to have more of a play-based childhood without parents being right there to sort of,
Well, and that protectionism, that's
Yeah.
the word I was thinking about. And my kids accused me of being overprotective. They did. They did.
Mhm.
And they were right.
Mhm.
Now,
the helicopter parenting and
yeah,
all of that.
I don't know that I was a helicopter parent, but I was certainly protective and making sure that they're going to be okay. What about you, Dr. Martin? Were you raised in the way that Dr. Zak and I are talking about, or were your parents overprotective, or very much about where is he? Is he going to be okay? Is he safe?
No, I think, I rode my bike all over town. I walked to school. I played in the dirty creek.
Right.
We
You
look
know.
for crawdads.
Yep.
Yeah,
Catching minnows.
yeah, and there was still stranger danger. But they said don't talk to strangers. They taught me how to cross the street. Gradually expanded my kind of my boundary perimeter, and then said, see you before
Well,
dark.
As a school counselor many years ago, I remember when we began having to talk about stranger danger to all grade levels.
Mhm.
And I was an elementary school counselor, and that was just something that we had to do to make sure the kids are going to be safe and okay.
Hmm.
Well, and I think the thing that he really highlights is how we became so overprotective out in the real world, but with the phones, how we do such a poor job at protecting, right?
Yeah.
We're under protecting when it comes to access and time spent and all these kinds of things. And he calls it the great rewiring, which I
Mhm.
think is a really, powerful term, right? Especially for Gen Z. I mean,
Yes.
that's really who we're talking about. This generation, that the first generation really that had smartphones during this time of critical development and going through puberty and all this. It's the Gen Zers
Yeah.
that we're talking about that it's impacted.
And Dr. Martin, did you have some key takeaways from your look at the book and some of the principles that he outlined?
Absolutely. I mean, as we've been discussing before, risk-taking behaviors are crucial for development, and the ability to become a resilient adult. But they are risky, so there's risk involved, and it's scary for parents. And I think that our, even the infrastructure of suburbia now, it's not friendly for walking as much as perhaps towns used to be, and riding bikes. So I think, on all fronts, there's a kind of a natural barrier to the traditional developmental process that we've gone through, where we,
And
explore
yeah,
and play freely.
I think his point too is that this has created the anxious generation. That is a part of this puzzle about why we're seeing anxiety rising
Right.
in our society. Now, what were some of your key takeaways, Dr. Zak?
He talks about the four harms of the development of the smartphone, and they all make sense. But he talks about the social deprivation. We you can't go anywhere and see a group of kids congregated, or shoot, go to dinner right at a restaurant, and people aren't talking to each other. They're on their phones. And, even in, we'll talk, I think, a little bit more about boys, but even in their gaming and online world, they think that they're connected socially, but there isn't that face to face. And so I think, that's a harm. Sleep deprivation. My boys, talked about, I wish I had this book when my kiddos were younger, but they go to sleep with their phone,
Mm-hmm.
and not healthy, right? They've given me the excuse, or they did, well, I need my phone, for an alarm. Well, there are alarm clocks, right? Or I've heard kids talk about, well, I need to listen to my phone to go to sleep, or to listen to music to go to sleep at night. There are Alexa devices, right? And so, I think there's a lot of things that parents can do. But attention fragmentation, I thought about leaving my phone off mute, just to see how many notifications, how many dings I would get just in this 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It's just constant.
Yes.
Constant. And the phones are developed, right, to suck you in, and there's a dopamine hit every time that phone dings or you get that notification.
My phone will not ding. It's lost its ability to ding.
That's probably good.
So it's a good thing, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So your attention is a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not getting pulled in because it doesn't ding me.
It doesn't ding you.
Yeah.
And then addiction is the other. We see that devices, have created addiction. And I think not just for teens, not just for kids, but for parents too. And so that was, really, I guess, eye-opening to me, realizing those harms.
Yeah. And this person, I think, is more of a social psychologist. So he's looking at society in some interesting ways that I think helps us, because you've already hit on some of them. Like, what do you do? What's a parent to do? That's our, and I know that parents are concerned about this advent of phones that are smart, and then also the advent of everything being done through a screen. One of the things that it kind of impacted me is that we see kids person to person. We see teens person to person. And that has value, because if they're going to come to counseling, it needs to be one-on-one, person to person. That is an antidote to what he's talking about. Was there anything else that either one of you picked up in terms of some of his recommendations? I know he has some recommendations about phones. I think one of them is, don't give a kid a phone that is a smartphone. Give them something else that's just a straight phone, but that's it, or a watch, I think.
Phone, a watch. Yep. I think he suggests until high school. And he talks about, the research that backs that, and, why we want to hold off. Again, kind of during this critical period in kids' development, we really want to hold off until, the brain matures.
Right. Right.
Yeah, the first few years of puberty, if you can go through that without Instagram and Snapchat, I think,
Yeah.
you're much better off.
And many parents are fighting back. Yay, parents. Many schools are fighting back. Yes, schools. I have many kids telling me, and I don't know if you've heard of this too, but they are being told to give up their phone. It's put in a special pouch. They cannot access it until the end of the day. Are y'all hearing that too?
I am, yeah. And the solution to that is you just have two phones. So you put one in the pouch.
There are workarounds. Kids are sneaky, but
it's an arms race.
Yeah.
And the kids are always going to win.
Yeah.
But
he does talk about what, well, I'll back up. I worried and have worried about, we've opened Pandora's box. What do we do now?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no putting it back.
Yeah.
But I love that he says, you know what, there are some things that we can do. And it requires kind of a collective effort. It's not just a parent doing this. It requires communities. It requires, whole groups of parents of elementary school, kiddos to agree
Right.
not to give their kid a phone until, high school. So their
Right.
kid isn't the only one. The smartphone, right?
Right.
And he talks about, that schools need to go phone free. I know some schools have shifted to no phones during class, but all that means is then when they do get the opportunity at lunch, right, to talk, the kids are on their phones. And so really needing to go full phone free. And parents worry, how will I get, in touch with Johnny if something were to happen?
Yeah.
Well, there's lots of ways,
Yeah.
right?
And one of his recommendations too was let kids have sleepovers. There's a big horror and fear about what's going to happen, but he says let them have a sleepover. Number one. Number two, if someone brings a phone, take it away, so that they have to talk to each other, and it not become a thing centered on a screen.
Yeah.
Were you going to say something?
Yeah, and let kids hang out together.
Yeah.
After school play dates, he recommends, especially on Fridays, drop the kids off at like whatever, Chili's or Whataburger, wherever kids of the same age congregate, and allow them to interact face to face, and then that can lead to more interaction over the weekend, because you're going to say, hey, what are you doing tomorrow? You want to meet up here again?
So I was living in Lake Highlands when my kids were growing up, and all of the kids in middle school, some in high school, congregated at the mall. That's what they did.
Oh, yeah.
They went there. They hung out. I wondered as a parent, is this safe? I wondered as a parent, should I let this happen? Thank the Lord I allowed it to happen, because they went out there and that's what they did, and they hung out and they interacted. They did not have smartphones back then. They just had the Razor phone.
We would go and find the payphone when we were ready to get picked up.
Yeah.
That's what we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. What about gender differences for boys, Dr. Martin? Are there some gender differences when we look at this gaming, electronics, whatever, safetyism? What's your thoughts about that?
There definitely are. And the biggest thing with boys is the need for risk-taking or risky play and social frustration are crucial. You have to go through face-to-face socially awkward interactions with boys and girls. It's important to play aggressively in the physical world, and with technology and its evolution, those natural evolutionary pushes have come to the point where we can go through that in a simulation through video games.
Yeah.
looking at porn through the safety of our own bedroom. You can do all the stuff that your brain is telling you to do at that age. You can do more of it, experience it in a more gratifying way, and in a much more safe and predictable way with your phone. And that's a problem in the long term.
Absolutely. Yeah. What about gender differences with girls?
I wanted to just piggyback with boys. I think I have some male clients who struggle with social anxiety, and they don't have any friendships outside of their online friends. And they'll tell me, well, I have friends. They're my online friends.
Yeah.
And they don't really understand that the quantity of those relationships. Yes, they may have many online friends, but the quality isn't there, the face to face.
Right.
And I think that's, a big problem for boys is, especially if they struggle a little bit socially. Well, they think that they have this wonderful social life, online gaming
But
friends,
it's online.
but it's online. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not person to person,
Yeah.
face to face. Yeah. So, I mean, if people are going to come to counseling, I'm going to be a proponent of let's have them come in. It does take extra time and effort and money to do the getting your kiddo or your teenager to the site, but in my opinion, it's better. Can some teens handle an online counseling thing? Possibly. And a lot of our work with parents and adults can also happen, but we've got to do something as a society about what has happened and start reducing the anxiety that our anxious kiddos have.
Yeah.
Now, what about gender differences with females?
Yeah.
Are there?
Big differences. I think the research shows that social media is not as harmful to our boys as it is to girls. And some research has shown that there's not even a correlational relationship. So, as social media, use increases, depression and anxiety increases for girls, it's causal. So there is a causal link with using social media and depression and anxiety with girls. And that's pretty scary.
Yeah.
So, that in more research, I love this book because it is very, data driven, and some research that was done where they took social media away for 3 weeks, and just within 3 weeks, anxiety and depression reduced. And so a huge impact.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Girls, I think, struggle with, of course, the body comparisons.
Yes.
On social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Snapchat, thousands of images that girls can view. And, where it used to be a commercial, right? And we would see, some unrealistic, image of beauty. Well, now it's just constant, thousands. And so this certainly contributes to low self-esteem. There's, concerns about eating disorders. And the other thing that I think is super interesting is you were talking about the physical aggression that happens with boys. It's just part of their development. With girls using phones, using social media, there's this relational aggression.
Yeah.
So whether they, comment something, that is just out there and then gets shared and shared and shared, whether they block someone, whether, how many likes or shares, or, there's just so much that can be done that can be harmful in these relationships that are over, over social media. So,
we're fast coming to the end of our time here, and I think we're going to have to do a part deux about this topic, because there's so much more to talk about, including recommendations for parents. I love his recommendation, though, just stop the safetyism. Stop it. Stop it.
And hold off on the phone.
Yes.
Yep.
Any other recommendations that you have a quickie that we can mention that he mentions in there?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's going to be difficult, but if, you know, as much as you can delay excessive phone use, kids are going to be better off. And, you know, but kids want cool stuff. So if they want an iPhone, say, you know, no, not yet, you know, another couple of years, but I'll get you an electric scooter, or you can have a tattoo. Just kidding.
And you know, I also saw in his recommendation too that have a conversation with your middle school kids about the dangers. I would say it needs to be a conversation, not you're not going to get that, but what do you think the dangers are? Let's talk about that. And begin that conversation and helping them to be reflective and to think, and you use that prefrontal cortex that they have as a human being. Well, we are out of time, and so glad that we got to talk about this topic, and we are probably going to do a part 2 and look into this more as parents are struggling with this reality. If you want to check into getting some counseling or therapy, of course, you can look at our website, www.drbeckloff.com, and or look up Beckloff Behavioral Health Center. And we will be there to help parents and families and the kids too, as they look at dealing with this struggle. We want to reduce anxiety down. We do. And I think there's some ideas of things that can happen. Thank you.